America, it's time for a bigly backlash. Seattle's police retake the Chaz, how they make attackers into victims across the country, $1 billion cut for the NYPD, new gender language you're supposed to use, and so much more. Welcome, everybody, to the Sexton Show. An honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to have you here with me. Thank you so much for joining. So I want to get right to it because you may have seen last night the individual, the husband of the duo from out in St. Louis who had the temerity to try and defend himself, his home, his family from an angry mob threatening to kill them. Of course, now this has settled into two camps. The two political parties represent different sides of this issue now. On the one hand, you have Republicans who meekly and sort of quietly out of the side of their mouth will say, yes, you should be able to. I mean, come on, you should be able to defend yourself, right? And then you have Democrats who are like, this is racist. Trump was all about retweeting it, and they're all freaking out, saying that these are peaceful protesters. I'm pretty sure it's illegal to threaten to kill somebody, especially as part of a mob that's rampaging through a neighborhood. But we all know that the multimillionaire overpaid babies on CNN, for example, take the position that, how dare you stop these new civil rights heroes who are traipsing through your front yard and threatening to kill you. How dare you stand in front of your home with your lawfully registered and owned firearm? Well, why is it such a problem? They ever want to stop? Oh, they were so peaceful. Oh, they just wanted to have their voices heard. We will deal. There's an essential lie. There's a very important component of this that I think has gotten not nearly enough attention. I'll return to it in just one moment. But here's Mark McCloskey, the St. Louis man with a pink polo and an AR-15, who has become something of a symbol, because I can tell you this right now, if I were in his shoes, his no-socks loafers, if you will, I would certainly have been standing out in front of my home. I would have had a little bit better muzzle discipline, but not everyone has spent as much time at the range as other folks have, right? But here is how this is being discussed, or here's what he wants you to know. Play clip 6.
I saw it all going up in flames and my life destroyed in an instant. And I did what I thought I had to do to protect my hearth, my home, and my family.
Well, no one was protecting you, and they were screaming at you and threatening to murder your dog and harm you and your wife. What do you make of the attacks on you for doing what we used to believe every homeowner had an obligation to do? Why are they denouncing you as a racist?
I don't understand. And, here's the interesting thing. I've spent my career defending people that are defenseless, for people that are having a hard time making their miracle happen, for people that don't have a voice. My black clients love us. The night that this happened, I had some of our black clients calling us up till 2:30 in the morning, telling us how wrong it was, the way the press was writing us up, telling how wrong it was that we should be portrayed as racist. This is what I do for a living. I help people that are down and that need a hand and the people that need a voice. To call us racist is ridiculous.
But it's necessary for the narrative. It's necessary because the symbolism of someone defending his home and using the Second Amendment to do it is an affront to this leftist movement. It doesn't matter what was said. It doesn't matter what the real threat was. The left does not care. In fact, I can tell you this right now. If they had stormed this man's house, let's say they had actually started throwing rocks and some of these protesters had tried to rush him, which obviously you'd think who would do that when someone has a weapon, but maybe they think he's not going to use it. And he did have to use his weapon in defense of his home. I guarantee you every Democrat in the country that would speak on this issue would be saying he needs to be tried for murder. Not allowed to defend your home. How dare you? There's a movement. Don't you understand what's at stake here? Don't you see the civil rights implications of these marchers in the streets? Oh, the marchers like the ones the protesters and the rioters, like the ones here in New York, who last night were chanting at the NYPD, NYPD, suck my blank. These are the new civil rights heroes. Oh, no, Buck, that was just one time. Really? What about pigs in a blanket? Fry them like bacon. What about the time that I heard over a month ago, my own ears, my own eyes, protesters screaming that horrid phrase at the NYPD? What about the protesters down in City Hall who were caught on video here in New York mocking the NYPD, saying they're so dumb, they didn't go to fancy colleges, can they even read? Saying this to officers, including a black officer that one of them went up to and said was a race traitor. CNN treats these people like they have a valid grievance. MSNBC thinks that they're civil rights heroes. The New York Times backs them to the hilt. In fact, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the lib media seems to have taken the approach that because they're worried about their position in society and their power and their influence in the Trump era, if they have to burn down this country, if they have to encourage the mob, incite the mob to ruin and riot, great. If they can't have it, no one can. Burn it all down. These people are a disgrace. I don't have a disagreement with them. I think they are odious. That's not the same thing. That's how I feel about all of the mainstream media, pundits and reporters and all them. And, of course, the protesters on the streets who are doing these things. They're appalling. You don't hear much about it on some of the channels, do you? Why would anyone think that an officer who's done nothing wrong, the Democrat leadership, Biden and Pelosi and Schumer, will say, well, we know there are a lot of good cops. Really? Because your protesters out on the street go up to cops at random, spit at them, throw things at them, say the most horrible things to them. So are they going after just the bad cops? Is that your, because they go after cops all over the place constantly that they've just met who have done nothing. This is all a fraud. This is all a fraud. But I wanted to get to what St. Louis has really exposed. Why does this bother the Democrats so much? Why are they so upset by this? Because this could be the beginning of a backlash, not just in rhetorical terms, but in terms of individual citizens who say enough, who say that they will stand up to the mob, they will defend themselves and their property. No more looting, no more rioting. It might also encourage the feckless and weak Republican Party that has done almost nothing to protect people and their homes and their rights during this time of anarchy and mob rage. Perhaps the Republicans will recognize that they have some authority and some power here too. Trump is saying that now they're going to arrest people for attacking statues. I want to see these prosecutions. I want to see the fullest extent of the law used to punish people who believe that they're above the law. But there's something else here that I think you must remember. Why did McCloskey in St. Louis really strike such a nerve? Did he harm anyone? Did he kill anyone? Did he wound anyone? No, he did nothing except stand outside his home on private property with his lawful firearm, making it clear that if they were going to try to burn out his house and kill him and his family, he was going to fight back, and that a few of them were going to go down in the process. That's often all you need for a bully or for a mob to know that they're not going to go forward with this. If they think they're going to get hurt too, whoa, hold on a second. Now this isn't all fun and games anymore. Who wants to be the first three across the threshold of that man's house that may get hit with a 5.56 round? That sends a very different message to the protesters, doesn't it? All of a sudden, they're not in this position to have you cower in fear. They can protest on public property. They can protest as long as they abide by the law. But more importantly than anything else, they can protest as long as they don't think that that means that people will all have to hide in their own homes in fear, hoping the mob doesn't turn on them. You see, that's the part of this that you won't hear from the media. You're supposed to be scared of this mob if you don't agree with it. You're supposed to be fearful, to hide. You're not supposed to stand up and say, you have your right to free speech. I have my right to self-defense, to private property. and to defend myself and my family. They want you to think that you're not allowed to do that. They want you to believe that there's always this threat of force in the background the mob has. We've seen them use it. Why have there been so many instances of these protests? And we know there have been protest movements, the Tea Party, of course, but there have been protest movements that were nonviolent, that were law-abiding and peaceful. Tea Party was entirely peaceful and entirely nonviolent, but they had a message. This is about more than that. These are revolutionaries who were hiding among a body of larger protesters so that then they can always have this mostly peaceful construct to defend them. Oh, no, it was mostly peaceful. There were 100 protesters. Only 30 of them were involved in the riot, so let's not disparage the whole thing. No, if you're part of a protest where there's a riot arm that's going to break off, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed because your cause at a minimum is hijacked, but as we know, they have no problem with this. The people that are breaking in the windows, that are lighting stores on fire, toppling statues, attacking cops, they're just the action arm. They're the paramilitary wing of this Democrat movement. So remember that every time you see this talked about on TV. Oh, no, it's peaceful. Sure it is in some places. In some places it's not. And that is part of the power of the movement. You better hide in your home when they march past your house, because maybe you're that instance in which they decide to burn down things again. Maybe you're that person, as we've seen in videos, who gets attacked by Antifa, who gets beaten in the streets. Maybe not. But you better be quiet. You better stay inside. You better not stand up to them, or else. They often use force, often enough that any rational person would be concerned about one of these mobs using force on them. The police aren't coming to your aid. The politics of these Democrat cities have abandoned rule of law, have abandoned pillars of our civilization, quite honestly. So it's all on you. It's all on Americans taking it upon themselves to defend their own rights, their own safety, and their own freedoms. Can't rely on the state anymore. Not these police forces in these Democrat-controlled cities. But just remember, every time you stand up and assert your rights and say you will not bend the knee, you will not comply, the mob loses a little bit of power. Yet another person who doesn't cower in fear is a strike against their ability to coerce and demand. And they don't like that very much. And I'm here to tell you more of us should do it. In fact, every person who cares about the future of this country should, if they're capable, if they're willing, in whatever way they see fit, stand up rhetorically, however they should, however they can, against this mob. It's on us. Government's not going to do it for us. It comes from citizens. That's why this situation in St. Louis is so upsetting to the Democrats. What do you mean someone could say, not today, not my house? The cops have pulled away. You're supposed to be helpless. We the mob will deign not to burn down your home this time. Maybe next time we will. You better bend the knee. Chant BLM at the top of your lungs. No, this individual decided that he wasn't going to wait to see what the mob thought it should do that day. I think a lot of us understand just what's at stake here. Working from home is driving up one of the worst kinds of cybercrime out there, home title theft. We're doing it all from home these days. Working, banking, video conferences, and meal deliveries, and also shopping. Cyber criminals, however, are shopping for your information, so to speak. They want to steal what they need to take out a loan against your home, get all that money, and leave you in debt. The FBI is trying to warn people about this, but you need to actually take steps. Home Title Lock is how you protect your home from cyber thieves. Your home's legal title is online where they can find it, forge your signature, and say that you sold your home to them. Then they'll take out these loans on your home, leave you in debt. Banks, insurance, basic identity theft services do not protect you. Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier around your home's title. Protect your home now. Go to HomeTitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. Use code BUCK for 30 free days of protection to help you through this crisis. That's code BUCK at HomeTitleLock.com. That's right. Screaming vulgarities at all the cops in New York gathered together to protect their right to protest, screaming obscenities at them, because this is just about bad cops, right? This isn't a movement of anti-cop hatred, because Democrats have convinced themselves that the system is their enemy in any point, in any way where they can't control it. They have Hollywood, they have the news media, they have the Academy, they have corporate America, they have the Democrat Party. But anything, the law that protects all of us is an impediment to Democrat power. Police who are arresting people who break the law, irrespective of disparate impact on society or irrespective of what the optics look like in a certain place or time. The law is the law. That's an impediment to Democrats. That's an offense to their sensibilities. What do you mean the law is going to be enforced even if it means that some individuals are arrested 100 times? That's unfair. Well, has that individual broken the law 100 times? Like the guy that punched the old lady in the head walking past her in the street in New York City? Well, Democrats don't want to ask those questions. That's too sane. That's too rational. In Seattle, I see they finally decided to clear out the CHAZ, or the CHOP, depending on who you ask, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone or the Capitol Hill Occupy protest. Oh, you mean this is Occupy all over again? This leftist revolutionary Democrat movement has come back. Same tactics, same phrases, same everything. What did they accomplish the last time? Oh, they made some public squares really crowded and smelly. Did they change society for the better? No, they did not. Did they do anything that they could point to, that a normal person could point to and say, yeah, we're really proud of that? I'm sure they'd think of some obscure, there's greater transparency for the cops in this neighborhood legislation, but we know that it's all crap. It's notable that in Seattle, they only took action after 2 people were killed inside of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. It's notable that they shut this thing down after there were already casualties. What is it? There's 23 arrests as Seattle retake control of the East Precinct in Capitol Hill. Wait, you mean that it was a massive failure? That the mayor, Jenny Durkin, issuing an executive order to clear this area, this only came after it was clear that this was a really, really stupid idea that harmed people, that achieved nothing, and that was all rooted in a left-wing delusion that the problem in society are cops. Cops doing their jobs and enforcing good laws. No, the real problems we have are people who are reckless, who don't think long term, who act out with violence, who believe that they're above the law, who believe that they're better than cops, they're better than people that are trying to do their jobs every day. Turned out there were a lot of people who had firearms in the area of the CHAZ in Seattle. Did that concern anybody, that there were no cops allowed in, people walking around with guns? No, of course not. Did it concern anybody when a 29-year-old man was arrested who had a large metal pipe and a kitchen knife carrying around with him when he was in the CHAZ with no cops around? No, that's not concerning. Of course not. This was all going to be like the summer of love, man. This was going to be great. Nope. Instead, it was a free-for-all zone for Democrat voters who are also left-wing idiots. And there was aggravated assault, larceny, theft, rape, and 2 murders. 2 people died because of this little commie idiot experiment in Seattle. Will there be anyone mourning them? Will they be martyrs for the cause? No, they're already forgotten, because that's what the left does. Destroys and uses and then moves on. You cannot overstate how much the most elite institutions under liberal control have completely lost their minds. Whether it's Yale University or NBC News or McDonald's. Big places in corporate America. Facebook, Google, Uber. Nuts. Totally nuts. No one willing to stand up and say, hey, we're all going to be adults, right? Like, we're not going to do this thing where we all pretend to care so much about something we don't really care about because it makes us feel good that we're going to forget about in like a month or two, all because we hate Trump so very, very much. It's absurd. It's crazy. But there's a Harvard student. And remember, it's not just the institutions. The people who work in them get brainwashed. The graduates of these hallowed universities. Oh, yes, I'm so brilliant because I went to such and such. No one cares anymore. Honestly, if you pay attention to it, you know that this just doesn't matter. You don't know. It's a coin flip. If someone goes to even the fanciest school in the country, it's a coin flip. Are they smart or not? Who knows? Depends. How'd they get there? Why'd they get in? Someone donate a building in their name? There's a lot of that going around at the top levels of elite circles. Anyway, a Harvard graduate here named Clara Janover said in a TikTok video. Now, TikTok is the new thing with where the cool kids are these days. So I'm going to make producer Mark create a TikTok video so that he can show us all of his cooking secrets and his favorite funky tunes or whatever the kids do on TikTok. Do you have a TikTok account yet?
I don't.
We got to get him a TikTok account. So it is. I will say I have a TikTok account because I want to know what the next generation is seeing, and it's a great tool. It reminds me of some of those old dystopian movies where they'll just show somebody, you know, a reel of footage, and they'll just keep running it, and it's a way of brainwashing people. TikTok is like that. You just sit there, you're just watching whatever you're into. You know, people doing little dance moves, people cooking food, people. There are some very good impressions, I will say, of political characters on there. But anyway, it's a Chinese spying site for whatever. If you care about that or not, the Chinese government controls this thing and is harvesting all the data. But a lot of people are going to say, I don't care if China knows that I want to cook the best burger possible and learn how to do a shuffle dance. Nonetheless, TikTok is now Instagram. Too many people over 30 are on Instagram. So now it's migrating to TikTok. And this Harvard grad, who I guess just finished at Harvard, I don't know, who cares? She did teach me a new term, caucasity, which is a new made-up word the left uses. Caucasity is a combination of audacious or audacity and Caucasian. So if you do something and you don't check your privilege, you're using caucasity. I would say that the liberals are using jackassery, and that's the that's the word that we should use to define their approach to all this stuff.
The next person who has the sheer nerve, the sheer entitled caucasity to say all lives matter, I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna stab you. And while you're struggling and bleeding out, I'm gonna show you my paper cut and say, my cut matters too.
She sounds like a total psycho. I don't know. This has now been viewed. It's gone viral. It's been viewed hundreds of thousands of times. And we're supposed to believe that when she's saying, if you say all lives matter, I'm going to stab you. Now, look, I don't think that she's really going to actually stab anybody. But what a crazy thing to say. Harvard grads now walking around saying, if you claim all lives matter, I'm going to stab you. Why exactly are you not allowed to say all lives matter? All would include black. So, no, because the purpose of saying Black Lives Matter and telling people that they have to agree with it is to get them to obey a political movement by using a phrase that no normal, reasonable human being would even think a half a second about before saying, of course, Black Lives Matter. But the purpose of it is not to see if people really agree. And also, let's understand this. If someone really was such a hateful bigot that they had a problem with that phrase, having them say it doesn't change anything. That's another part of this, too. This is all about the optics and the politics of it. You know, why won't you say Black Lives Matter? Trust me, under the right circumstances, you can get somebody to say anything if they think it's in their interest. Doesn't change what's in their heart. That's why this whole game is absurd. You're making people agree with something that they constantly already agree with. Everyone agrees with it. So what are we doing? What are we even talking about? But if you go to Harvard, I went to Harvard. You can run around saying you're going to stab somebody if they say all lives matter. That would be a very unwise thing for her to do. Now she's claiming that it's satire. It doesn't sound like satire. That sounds like a threat. I don't think it's funny either. And it's just it's even if it is supposed to be satire, she clearly is a BLM wannabe activist. So that's how upset, that's how enraged she gets by the notion that all lives matter. My friends, these people are unhinged. We are living in a period of mass media and mass hysteria, and the results are not good. You have far too many Americans who are bombarded with propaganda. They don't even know what propaganda is. They don't know the origins of the term, of the word, the history of it. They don't believe that they should have any exposure to harmful thoughts. They've created these cocoons of the mind for themselves where they're not allowed to be exposed to anything else. It's just going to be the constant echo chamber of BuzzFeed listicles and MSNBC slams. And then they turn on The Daily Show, which everyone knows stinks, right? It's a bad show. They turn on this stuff and yeah, that's right. Oh man, you hear what John Oliver said? He was like, I'm here from Britain and I'm just going to make fun of all the stupid Republicans and curse a lot and hit the table. No, that's not actually convincing me of anything. But I do love that the libs love to bring over liberal people from Britain to lecture all of us on how stupid how stupid Americans are. Yeah, thank you for that. We really, really want to hear what they have to say. Sure. Can you imagine being an American and showing up in Great Britain being like, hey guys, what's going on with the Queen? You want to explain this to me? Come on. And on a news show where you're talking to nothing but Brits. Hey, somebody tell me about the Queen. I don't understand this thing. What are you guys doing here? People would think, you're probably a little out of your element. I'm just like, but no, not here. Whether it's CNN importing Piers Morgan or John Oliver, they love the libs. So impressed by British accents. Some on our side are too. I'm gonna say, I know. It's we got a little bit of that going on, but oh, my friends, this is a period of insanity we are going through. At least I have all of you to keep me sane. Because there's no other way to understand this other than these people are completely nuts. They've totally lost it. Here you've got somebody from the Democratic Socialists of America, which is really just a group meant to help the Democrat Party, but to pretend that there's something really different and distinct. Oh, no, we're not the Democratic Socialists of America. We're the Democrat Party. Sure you are. But here she is saying that defunding the police is not enough. Play 15.
Yeah, there's too many uniformed police in New York City. And furthermore, when we talk about defunding the NYPD, the other part of that is to fully fund social services. I can tell you on the encampment, it's obvious. We have some of the most vulnerable members of our community coming out to have their voices heard and participate in this encampment. And it's clear that what they're saying they need is services, mental health services, social services, adequate housing, affordable health care, the quality education. These are the things that the community is crying out for. And so it's not good enough to move money around and fancy accounting tricks. It's not good enough to just defund the NYPD even. We have to meet that with services that are fully funded as well.
I mean, this would be laughable in a sixth grade social studies class. Yeah, we don't need the cops. We just want all the services to be funded. What? What services are currently unfunded? Does she even know? Does she know that de Blasio's wife, Shirlane McRae, never elected to anything, but hey, the Republicans, we're not allowed to criticize nepotism. I've been telling you that this is a problem we're going to run into. Now, what are we going to do? I hope that was worth it. We were all kind of quiet on that one. We'll see. We got our own problem with that going on in the Republican Party, and people didn't want to. Oh no, I had people say, "Oh no, they're a very wise choice." No, it really is not a wise choice. It's not a precedent we want to set. We don't have monarchs here. We don't have people giving things to their family members. But look, I know Bill Clinton and Hillary. I mean, this has been around for a while, but it's really we should not do this. But anyway, Shirlane McRae, who's the wife of the mayor of New York, spent $800 million on some mental health program. And anytime a city mental health program, anytime someone says, what exactly did you do or did it accomplish? It's like, oh, we don't, I don't know. Ask somebody else. There's no, they have nothing. They have nothing. What are the social services that need to be? The schools in New York, we all have this image in our head. And this is true of public schools in rough neighborhoods across the country. But schools, you go back all these movies in the 90s of a teacher who's in a rough neighborhood public school and just wants to help the kids and turn it all around and like teaches them some poetry, and then everyone's behaving themselves and being like really nice to each other. Right. Sure. But you always have the the ceilings falling in and there's no books and it looks like bombed out Beirut in these public schools. Maybe in the 90s that was true. That's not true anymore. I have a friend who works at a school in a public school in New York that's considered one of the Renaissance schools here. Tons of funding. They're spending more on these students than most people spend on private school in the rest of the country. Okay? They have the best teachers in the public school system that they get to pick. They have the best resources, everything that they need. And the schools their facility is brand new, nice computers in every classroom. And guess what? Test scores haven't budged. Haven't budged. You'd say, wait, what's going on? I don't understand. I thought it was just resources. No, but they don't want to talk about that. No, they'd rather shut down charter schools in New York operating outside the tradition. Remember, charter schools are publicly funded, right? But operating outside the Democrat power base of the teachers unions, charter schools that in some cases, here in Harlem, there's Harlem Success Academy. The school is almost entirely black and Hispanic. And those young children, those boys and girls are outperforming on math and science their peers at schools across the state on testing. So it can be done. No one's saying it can't be done, but just throwing money at the problem isn't going to solve it. You know what one thing that charter schools do that Democrats really don't like? There are a couple of things that charter schools don't like. And I can just speak to it in the context of New York. I know they're different in different places across the country. One, it takes away from the power base of the teachers unions, which are just a machinery for electing Democrats. Give them, the shortest working schedule possible for the teachers, the fattest health and pension benefits possible, and all you have is the teachers union. And of course, the teachers tend to be liberal anyway, but I know a couple of conservatives, but they'll just make sure Democrats keep getting elected. That's part one. You know what part two is for some of these charter schools Democrats don't like? Parents have to agree to be involved too. Parents have to sign on for the charter school approach and experience. They have to come to parent-teacher meetings. They have to make sure the child is in school on time. So there's a component of individual investment and, yes, individual responsibility. And it works. It works for kids who are black and Hispanic in New York who are coming out of Section 8 housing. It works. But Democrats don't like that. That's not the message that they want to tell. That's why they tried to shut down Success Academy in New York. That's why Obama, when he came into office, initially was going to shut down charter schools in D.C., and there was a big backlash against it. His kids were going to a $35,000 a year private school, of course. But charter schools in D.C. for minority students predominantly minority students that are doing really well, whoa, that's a threat to the established order of the public school system, which is about a jobs program for adults and a vote turnout system, turnout votes for Democrats. That's what the public school system is really about. So all these people, all these activists say, oh, we need better funding, whatever. No, we've already run these experiments in cities across the country. We know what works and doesn't. They don't want to do things that work. They want to spit at cops, pretend that the problem is the enforcement of law, not the committing of crime, and not look at what's already being done for social services and why is there such a need for social services? I don't know. Maybe the breakdown of the family is a concern for people.
My question to you is, can't you give us a little bit more on schools that we can get back to school, that there's a great deal of evidence and it's actually good evidence that kids aren't transmitting this. It's rare and that kids are staying healthy and that, yes, we can open our schools.
I feel very strongly we need to do whatever we can to get the children back to school. So I think we are in lock agreement with that.
Even Dr. Fauci is like, yo, look, okay, we've had months of mitigation. Up, down, sometimes up, sometimes down. Who knows? Got a lot of numbers coming in. A little scary. Are you scared? Because I want you to always be scared. That's St. Fauci, rule number 1. Be terrified. Rule number 2, do everything I say, even when it's wrong, and even when I change my mind every 2 months. But I do think the children should go to the school. But here's the problem. Even though we understand that children are at an entirely acceptable risk level from COVID-19, and we have months and months of data, millions and millions of cases to look at, Children are basically fine when they get this. They don't even know they have it. Think about this. We're worried about kids getting a disease that is so dangerous for children that children who have it don't even know. They don't have symptoms. They don't feel sick. They are asymptomatic. Why then, you would ask, is it even a question that public schools that all schools would not be open this fall? Isn't that interesting? Remember we were talking before about the Democrat machinery of the public school system? Those union bosses who run those systems and those school superintendents and chancellors and, are making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year to push some paper around and talk about, our public school system's doing great. Give us more money. Take the taxpayers' hard-earned cash more. Raise their property taxes. That's what they do. They understand the stakes for this fall. Kids go back to school. People can go back to work. People can go back to work. Kids are in school. Things start to look better. The economy starts to pick up a little bit. Because there's no epidemiological reason, really, not to have a K through 12 education. You're not going to open the schools? Based on what? Even Fauci knows. And when Fauci knows that something isn't dangerous, you better be darn certain that it's safe. Kids need to be in school. Open them all up this fall.